Welcome back to Fictional History 101. I'm your fictional professor, Aaron Johnson. Today we'll be continuing our lecture series on Mobile Suit Gundam. While we've been talking a lot about the Grips conflict, I want to go back a little bit, and I want to talk about two pilots who served in the 1-year war. Both of these pilots would fight on different sides, but both would be influential, both during the war and afterwards. We'll be talking about the Earth Federation's White Devil, Amuro Rey, and Zeon's Red Comet, Char Aznable. Today we'll mostly be covering material from Mobile Suit Gundam, but we'll also dip into Mobile Suit Gundam The Origin as well as Char's Deleted Affair, but these will be relatively small portions of today's lecture. As we talked about in a prior lecture, Zeon Daikun had 2 children, Kasfal and Artesia. The last time we talked about Kasfal and Daikun, the year was UC 71, and he and his sister had escaped to the Earth with Jimba Rawl. Together, they had stayed in the home of Tiabolo Mass. Here, the 2 Daikun children took on new names. Artesia was given the name Sayla, while Kasfal became Eduard. Both took on the roles of Tiabolo Mass's adopted children. Jimba Rawl had taken Kasfal as part of his escape to Earth. He planned to mold both Kasfal and his sister Artesia to resent the Zabi family, and hoped to use them to return to favor within Side 3. This would be part of a coup to remove the Zabi family and put himself back at the head of Side 3 in the fledgling nation of Zeon. However, his attempts to gain weaponry and equipment from Anaheim Electronics were discovered by the Zabi family. Cassilia Zabi sent assassins to Tiabolo Mass's home, killing a number of his staff, bodyguards, and eventually Jimba Rawl himself. It appears that Kasfal and his sister were targets as well, and only escaped due to the young Kasfal fighting off one of the assassins that had found them. Fearing further attacks, Tiabolo took the 2 children with him to the Texas colony. With Jimba Rawl dead, it was believed that there would be no further attacks on him. By this time, Kasfal had long resented the Zabi family, and began to yearn for revenge against the people who had caused his family so much harm. In UC 74, Kasfal, Artesia, and Tiabolo had settled into their new home within the Texas colony. One of the few people there that knew Kasfal's true identity was a friend of Tiabolo, Char Aznable. Roger's son Char Aznable held a striking resemblance to the young Kasfal, and the two were nearly identical save for differing eye color. By this time, the Autonomous Republic of Zeon was calling for its youth to join the military, and both Char and Kasfal decided that they would travel to Side 3 in order to attend the military academy there. Cassilia Zabi would learn of Kasfal's attempt to return to Side 3, and feared he was coming back for revenge or to lay claim to the leadership of Zeon. She sent her operatives to sabotage the ship that Kasfal and Char were scheduled to board, planning to have them die in what would appear to be a freak accident. Kasfal had discovered the agents that had been keeping an eye on them, and suspected that Cassilia would try to assassinate him en route to Side 3. In order to fool the agents, he planted a pistol in Char's luggage. When Char attempted to board the ship, he was detained by security. Kasfal offered to trade places with Char, as they were virtually identical, and said that he would stay behind to speak to security, while Char would take his place aboard the ship. This would allow him to arrive to the military school on time for admittance. Char agreed to this, and boarded the ship. However, shortly after leaving the dock, the ship would be destroyed in an explosion, killing the real Char Aznable, and leaving Cassilia to believe that Kasfal had been killed as well. From this point on, Kasfal would go under the identity of Char Aznable, which I will use to refer to him from here on. Char would join the military academy and befriend the young Garma Zabi. As we mentioned in a previous lecture, he was part of the Dawn Rebellion and in many ways planted the seeds of the attack in Garma's mind. However, after the rebellion, the Earth Federation needed to punish someone for the insurrection. While Dozle Zabi would accept the official reprimands in place of his brother Garma, Char would be punished in turn by Dozle. As such, he was stripped of his rank and expelled from the military academy. By UC-77, Char had moved to Earth, and he began working in construction. It was here he met someone who would greatly influence the rest of his life, Lala Soon. He found himself instantly drawn to her, and rescued her from a brothel while he worked on Earth. It wouldn't be long before Char realized that Lala was one of the new types that his father had spoken of, and through his connection with her, realized he was as well. When the 1-year war was nearing its start, Char was summoned back to Zeon by Dozle Zabi and asked to serve as a mobile suit pilot. He brought the young Lala Soon with him, leaving her in the care of the fledgling Flanagan Institute. Char would quickly make a name for himself in the 1-year war, serving as a part of the operation that would stop the defecting Dr. Minovsky, and even fighting at the Battle of Loom. This is where he would earn his nickname the Red Comet, as he destroyed 5 Magellan-class battleships during the fighting. He would quickly climb the ranks, finding himself promoted to lieutenant commander and given command of a Musai and several mobile suits. But let's step back for a moment. Casval Daikun had come a long way from the boy who was targeted by the Zabi family. Now, under the name of Char Aznable, he was a friend of the youngest Zabi family member, Garma Zabi, a talented mobile suit pilot, and even given command of a ship. While some would view his rise through the ranks as suspicious, it was undeniable that it gave him a great deal of respect, and went a long way towards granting him his wishes of vengeance against the Zabi family and the reclamation of his father's dreams. However, while Char faced a life of relentless adversity and danger, his soon-to-be rival lived a somewhat quieter life. Amuro Rey was born in UC-64, on Earth. Around UC-71, Amuro's father Tem Rey would leave the Earth to work at Side 5. His mother would stay on Earth while Amuro and his father would move into space. Shortly afterwards, in UC-77, Amuro and his father would move to Side 7. Tem Rey had been selected to work at the Federation's V project and needed to move to the development site. As Amuro's father spent a great deal of time working, Amuro was typically left to himself at home. He would attend school and made some local friends in his neighborhood, but otherwise kept to himself and mostly tinkered with machines. In UC-79, Amuro would be present during Char's attack on Side 7. While Char's team sought to destroy the Federation's mobile suit prototypes, Amuro would board the Gundam and fight off the attacking Zakus, and protected the Federation's white base carrier. Char would board his own Zaku and engage with Amuro and the Gundam outside of the Side 7 colony. This would be the first time that Char and Amuro would clash, but certainly not the last. After escaping from Side 7 aboard the White Base, Amuro would be pressed into military service as the Gundam's pilot. Amuro was one of the few capable pilots aboard the White Base, after Char's attack had killed many of the crew. Amuro helped defend the White Base as it made its way to Earth, repeatedly fighting against Char in defense of the White Base. He was nearly killed in one battle against Char when his mobile suit began to re-enter Earth's atmosphere, but managed to survive this as well, thanks to the Gundam. On Earth, Amuro would face Char in New York, who had come under the command of Garma Zabi. Char had come to Earth under the pretense of helping Garma defeat the Gundam and the White Base. However, he had other plans. During an attack on the White Base, Char gave Garma false information about the location of the White Base. When Garma moved to attack, the White Base was able to ambush his Gao carrier and kill him.
Hey Garma, do you read me? Blame this on the misfortune of your birth.
What? Misfortune?
That's right.
Char, You're not saying that...
You were indeed a very good friend to me. Don't take it personally. You can thank your father for this.
Char, you double-crossed me, Char!
Char had taken the first step towards his revenge on the Zabi family. While Char would be reprimanded for the death of Garma Zabi, his superiors only had suspicions for why he had given incorrect information. Cassilia would be the only one to suspect Char's involvement, but opted to keep him close, pulling him under her command. After leaving New York, Amuro and the White Base crew began to encounter Ramba Ral and his commando team. By this time, Amuro had begun to exhibit signs of combat fatigue or shell shock. He became sullen, often keeping to himself in his room and refusing to speak to others, or would lash out at random. In truth, it was a lot of strain for a 15-year-old to handle, and the constant battles were taking a toll on him. After encountering Ramba Ral and his commando team, Amuro stole the Gundam from the White Base and began to act on his own. A search team that was sent to retrieve him and the Gundam would be tracked by Ramba Ral, allowing him to find the White Base and continue his attacks against it. This would prompt Amuro to return with the Gundam and help defend the White Base from Ramba Ral. For abandoning the ship and his crew, Amuro would be placed in the brig for a short time. However, he would be needed to help pilot the Gundam before long, and would be released in time for Operation Odessa. This was the Federation counterattack against Zeon forces on Earth. Here, Amuro would add to the legacy of the Gundam by defeating the Zeon aces, the Black Tri-Star. At the same time, Char was granted command of the Mad Angler submarine squadron and placed back on the hunt for the White Base. By following the White Base, Char was able to locate a hidden entrance to Jabro. With this information, Zeon planned a large-scale assault on Jabro, including a smaller infiltration by Char's team through the hidden entrance. Again, Amuro and Char clashed, with the two unable to defeat one another. Amuro and Char would both return to space. Char would be moved from the Mad Angler squadron, and instead be given command of a Zanzibar-class ship, in order to continue his pursuit of the White Base. After several battles, both Char's Zanzibar and the White Base would dock at the neutral colony of Side 6. Here, both crews were instructed they would be allowed into the colony on the condition that they would not fight while within the area around Side 6. While here, Amuro would encounter the young Lala soon. While they didn't speak for long, Amuro was struck by the woman's strange nature and felt a sort of affinity with her. Several days later, while driving around the colony, Amuro's car would be stuck in some mud. Char and Lala, passing nearby, saw the stuck car and stopped to help. Amuro immediately knew who Char was, even without ever having seen him. However, Char was none the wiser and helped Amuro pull his car out of the mud, going on his way without ever realizing who Amuro was. Amuro would find that Lala was the first real new type he had encountered, and she left a deep impression on him. He found himself mystified and attracted to her, though he only met her in person twice. After their meetings, he would often think about her and consider some of the feelings that he had found in the short time with her. After leaving Side 6, the White Base headed to Solomon, participating in the battle with Dozal Zabi, while Char and Lala would travel to meet Dr. Flanagan. Char would be given a new mobile suit, the Gelgoog, while Lala was prepped for using the Elmeth mobile armor. Amuro and Char would encounter one another again at the Texas colony, where Char had planned to ambush the Gundam in his newly equipped Gelgoog mobile suit. Even with the more capable mobile suit, Char was unable to defeat the Gundam. After this, the Gundam would be given some upgrades to allow it to keep pace with Amuro's increasing abilities. While this happened, Lala had her first battle against Federation forces aboard the Elmeth. Char and Lala had been assigned to harass Federation forces around the recently captured Solomon. The two of them, in addition to working closely together, had grown very close. While Char was already attracted to Lala, his new type abilities gave him another level of attraction to her, and all Lala wanted was to protect Char, as she also began to fall in love with him. Char and Lala attacked the White Base. With the upgrades to the Gundam and his developing new type abilities, Amuro was able to keep pace with both Lala and Char, including the bits that she used as part of the Elmeth. Amuro nearly killed Char during the battle. However, Lala pushed his mobile suit out of the way, taking the killing blow herself. Lala used her final words to contact Amuro and told him that other new types were emerging. Lala's death affected Char and Amuro very deeply. Before her death, Char had shifted his attention away from the Zabi family and became more interested in new types, believing that they were entering an age of new types. However, Lala's death brought about a small shift in Char, a sort of move away from an optimistic view of the future, and more of a belief that some new types were too dangerous to let live. Amuro came to realize that war was crueler than he'd previously thought, as the only other new type he had connected with was killed in an ultimately pointless battle. But it also hardened his resolve to see the war end. The two would meet for the last time in the one-year war at Abawaku. Char would pilot the prototype Zeon mobile armor, while Amuro still used the Gundam. The two sought each other out during the battle, fighting each other until their mobile suits were destroyed. Even then, they fought one another in the halls of Abawaku hand-to-hand, and even with swords at one point. They fought until Char's sister, Sayla Mass, came between them and stopped their fight. Before leaving, Char told Amuro that he should fight alongside him, as they were both new types.
I thought your enemy was the Zabi family!
Destroying that family is no longer a top priority of mine, Artesia. Once Zeon is no more, we will enter the age of new types. If Amuro can let go and understand what it is I'm trying to say, then fight along beside me. Lala would be so happy. What's that?
How could you even suggest that?
Not entirely finished with his quest for revenge, Char went to the hangar where Cassilia Zabi was preparing to escape, and killed her with a shot fired through the bridge of her Zanzibar. While Amuro would return to the White Base, Char would join the Zeon forces that fled to Axis. After the war, Amuro was placed on an unofficial house arrest. While he was officially free to go and do what he wanted, the government kept an eye on him and ensured that whatever he did, he was monitored. In the years after the one-year war, Amuro served as a mobile suit trainer for the Cheyenne Mobile Suit Academy. It's believed by some that Amuro never returned to space for fear of encountering Lala Soon's spirit there. Char's afterward period is slightly more eventful. We covered it briefly in the Axis Extra Credit lecture, but I'll go over it quickly here. Char joined the Zeon forces at Axis, even being offered a leadership role there. However, he declined it, giving the role to Haman Karn instead. Although he helped defend Axis from some minor attacks from the Federation, he would find himself disillusioned as more and more pro-Zabi sentiments arose within Axis. Believing that they would not promote the new type age that he wanted, he left Axis. While officially returning to Earth as a spy for Axis, Char had no plans to continue serving them, and took several soldiers loyal to him as he returned to the Earth Sphere. When Char returned to the Earth Sphere, he worked to infiltrate the Earth Federation forces, taking on the assumed name of Quattro Bagina. Shortly after infiltrating the Earth Federation, he came into conflict with a group of Titans that had moved to attack Zeon remnants, as well as the fledgling Ayug forces. After protecting the Ayug meeting, which included the leader of the Aeug, Blex Forer, Char joined with the Aeug, serving as one of their top mobile suit pilots. Both Char and Amuro faced many hardships and struggles during the 1-year war, and it had very different effects on them. Amuro began the war as a child who wanted nothing to do with the fighting, and while he would come to accept his role in helping end the war, at the end of it he was left shaken by the experience. Losing Lala soon, despite the brief contact they shared, left him largely unwilling to go into space, and the horrors he had experienced in the war left him unwilling to re-enter a mobile suit. Char had his own transformation. He went from a man who only wanted revenge against the Zabi family to someone hoping to carry on his father's legacy. He wanted to bring peace to the Earth sphere and end the fighting between those in Earth and those in space. He didn't see the need for more useless wars like the 1-year war, and wanted to bring new types to a position of prominence within the Earth sphere and hopefully usher in a time of peace. While Amuro tried to stay out of the chaos brought about by the Titans, Char dove into it, fighting for a future he truly believed in. Amuro would stay out of the fighting for some time, but he would eventually find himself pulled into the Aeug and fighting alongside his former rival, Char. We'll go into that more in our next lecture, covering the escalation of the Grips conflict. Amuro and Char had many things in common. They were both talented pilots who fought during the 1-year war. Each had developing new type abilities, and both of them fell in love with Lala soon. Her death hurt each of them, and they coped with it in very different ways. This would serve as one of the biggest influencers of their actions throughout the Grips conflict, and even the wars after. I think that's all we have time for today, but I want to thank you for joining us in class. Next class, I hope to go into the later half of the Grips conflict. Don't forget that when we left off, Axis had arrived within the Earth sphere, drawing the attention of both the Aeug and the Titans. Their influence, along with that of Jupiter's Paptimus Scirocco, would cause a great deal of upheaval within the Federation. But we'll get to that next class. Again, I want to thank you for joining us, and please don't forget to study. The intro and outro music for this class is Labyrinth by Enrico Altavia, courtesy of freesoundtrackmusic.com.